All right, hello again. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Barcelona and kind of doing like, how I do like the Real Madrid recaps, like this will be like Barcelona recap because I did like a Barcelona thoughts video before the season, so I wanted to do one. I won't do them as often for Barca. Maybe I'll do one next like in December time when it's like halfway through the season and then quarter and then end of season. Madrid will be the one that I'm like kind of consistent with, and then I'll sprinkle in like good games here and there when the Champions League, the big games of the Champions League start happening. But we had one here, Barcelona versus Paris Saint-Germain. Before we get into it, let's just go over where Barcelona are at with the season right now. So they're not doing as bad as obviously recent form suggests. They're second in La Liga, only 2 points behind Real Madrid, and then in the Champions League they're still doing well. Can I like access that here? Gee, I don't think so. Oh, down here, yeah. I mean, yeah, they have one win, one loss in the Champions League. Next game is Olympiacos. Their schedule is easy. I don't see them struggling too much. So overall, it's been a decent start to the season. I'd say, now we can start getting into it. One of the worst things so far with the squad, or one of the things that's been the biggest worry for the squad, is the injuries. So obviously, right now they have a lot of players out. Their starting goalkeeper and Joan Garcia has probably been one of the best goalkeepers in the world, definitely top three this season. Gavi's out long term. Fermin Lopez, who's been performing brilliantly at starter level, better than Dani Olmo has, better than Gavi has, he's out, but he should be back soon. Dani Olmo just got injured today. Lamine injured again, came back for that PSG game, and then he's out again. He should be back though after the international break, and obviously Rafinha as well. He's out. So a lot of injuries kind of tormenting the squad right now. Let's get into their game against PSG because obviously, they're still winning up until this. If we look at their fixture list, they're not doing too bad for themselves. Obviously, starting off in La Liga, good start. Levante, this is a game we'll talk about later on in the video. Draw against Rayo, not great, but Rayo is obviously a difficult place to play. Big win against Valencia, great win in the Champions League against Newcastle, solid win against Getafe, Oviedo as well. They made light work of Sociedad, gave them a bit of trouble at the start, but then they won that. And then these are the two games that have really, kind of put around Barcelona's weaknesses to the front. So I do think that similar to like last season with Madrid, the biggest problem is injuries, and like you can't build a consistent squad with those. Barcelona's biggest success factor last season was having everybody available most of the time. When they went wrong was when their injuries started, creeping up in that semifinal match against Inter. But also, what's it called? They had like a consistent squad for 90% of the season. 90% of the season, they were able to put out the same core players, same like maybe 8-9 core players with some rotations here and there, week to week, and that's huge when you have such a good winning formula, such a good winning system, but also all your players are available and you can play that 11 all the time. That's what brings success. That's like one of the key things for success in the sport. Barcelona haven't had that this season, so they've been rocky. But I also feel like they've been running the same system as previous years with slight tweaks. Obviously, the inclusion of Rashford gives you a different dynamic. What I like about Flick is he tries to maximize the players in his system. Like, he's playing Rashford. He's not restricting Rashford to a similar role as Rafinha. Rafinha is a runner. Rafinha goes into space, so Rafinha is allowed to drift inside and help out. Lewandowski. Sometimes even take over the center forward role. That's how he was such an output machine. But Rashford's like a more traditional winger in the sense that yes, he's great at ball striking. He's great coming centrally, but he's brilliant taking on his man. He's brilliant running with the ball. So he's maximizing these strengths for Rashford while still maintaining a system of that high line, that counter pressing system, that positional rotation in the middle, with that like off ball, press, switching from a zonal to a man press, winning the ball back easy. So yeah, that's how Barcelona, were so good last season. This season, not so much. Now let's just get into the PSG game fully and what's been going wrong. So first, we can kind of look at the lineups. PSG have a weak lineup here. It's like, as much as you can say both sides have injuries, but Barcelona have the better squad on paper out. They have more of their core players back than PSG do. But in this game, it ended up being PSG winning. And I think this was a really good game. I don't think PSG fully dominated Barcelona. I do think that second half, they were definitely like comfortably better than Barcelona. But Barcelona had moments. I think this was one of the best games to kind of illustrate the modern like game, how the modern game is played, because these are two of the best teams in the world. It's very direct. It's very like press oriented. It's very intense. High lines. Chances don't come, or the goals necessarily don't come from long possession spells. This happens in like league games and all that. Like if you watch Barcelona play like a mid-table La Liga side, yes, they're going to dominate the ball, and that's how the goal is going to come. But when these two heavyweights come up against each other, it's like chances come very quickly, almost from nothing. And one thing I really want to highlight with the evolution of the sport is how the goal kick has become one of the most dangerous kind of weapons in modern ball. It's like you start from here, and so many attacks are created from here. Just a specific example in this game, Nuno Mendes' goal literally came from him starting here, carrying the ball, playing a 1-2 into space, carrying the ball, going into space, and then giving it to Mayulu up here to finish. Like, the goals are coming from here. The goals aren't coming from sitting in the opposition's half, both sides, they don't have long strings of possession. It's always flip-flopping. It's always going towards who really can beat the press, of the other team. So one thing I wanted to highlight with this Barcelona side, so here's the lineup that they went with, for the majority of the season. I think the Barcelona, their lineup against Eric Garcia. All right, we'll just put Eric Garcia here. And then we'll put Yamal. And then it was Ferran up top. So this is the lineup that they went with against PSG, and I think midfield-wise, it's not really much issues here. So when when PSG would have the ball, it would be Ferran coming up to press, and then Yamal coming up to press. It would kind of be more like this, like man-oriented almost. Pretend everybody's like marking another PSG player in this back line over here. So they get pressed over here. I'm trying to find the best visual to kind of show it, but when these two are back, it's like everybody's pressed man to man. Then there's a certain press trigger for this Barcelona side to switch from zonal to man. So when Chevalier has the ball, or Chevalier, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but when he has the ball, it's more zonal. It's everybody in their zone, and they kind of were like this in that 4-2-3-1 zonal pressing. But then as soon as Pacho gets the ball here and passes back to Chevalier, and they want to recycle his ball over to Zabarni, what Barcelona would do, and this is like evident both from Barcelona and from PSG, like both of these sides are doing it. As soon as that ball is going over here, Ferran's cutting off that angle to Pacho over here, and then they're all pushing up to this side. They're all coming inside, and that leaves a free man here, whether that be Nuno Mendes, whether that be Hakimi, but they all kind of converge. And then when the fullback comes up to mark the winger, the center backs come up to press, and then over here it kind of becomes like this, where they're pressing up there, one of the fullbacks goes up, and then they're man to man, really high on the halfway line. These three are man to man with the PSG front line, because the PSG front line would just be in this space, and then they would try to converge them into one side of the field. That's how modern teams press. That's how modern teams, win the ball back really well. I just think PSG did a better job of exploiting it than Barcelona did, and I think that's mainly due to their player personnel building up from the back. We saw a lot of like De Jong coming down into these spaces, and then Koundé pushing up, inverting. Like, we saw a lot of this just so Barcelona could be more threatening in the build-up. You see De Jong would drop here with Kubarsi instead, and then Eric Garcia and then Pedri would be in the middle with Koundé very high and Gerard Martin really high. They would need De Jong here to help with the build-up, because they just weren't capable enough to build out with the player personnel that they have. Usually it would be Balde tucking in, because he's such a good ball carrier, but they didn't have Balde in this situation in this game. So that's how Barcelona would kind of press, and PSG just did a better job at it. How PSG exploited this more so in the second half. Well, one thing I also want to talk about. We'll leave that for the Sevilla game actually. One way PSG would kind of beat their press would be just because of their player personnel. Their fullbacks would stretch the press a lot. So what would happen is when they're trying to come up and press man to man, what PSG would do is PSG would have all their four defenders stretch really wide. So even when, say, this pass goes into Nuno Mendes or Pacho has it, and then Barcelona are like converging to that side, Hakimi would just be a free man here. Like, he would literally just be wide open, and all they would have to do is play a ball over. It doesn't even have to be accurate. They just play a ball over to the space. Hakimi gets it. Zaire Emery and Vitinha would already be dropped down, just because when PSG build up now, you're building up with two center backs in the box. That's how a lot of teams build up now. But then you have your pivots drop as well to create an overload. But then so they would be in this situation. Mendes or Pacho or Vitinha, whoever, switches the ball over to Hakimi. Ruiz will come over and Bai will come over, and then now they're taking the ball and they're into midfield and they can attack the back line of Barcelona. One thing I do want you to notice, and it's hard to visualize here, is when this happens, I want you to just notice something, like where the space is. So they play this switch over. Say Hakimi gets the ball here, Zabarni, we'll just put him like, here. Say the goalkeeper is shifted over. What is the big kind of space? Where's the gap? It's here. And then obviously beyond the back line, because when Barcelona, these teams, to play this kind of pressing system, you have to play a high line. Both Barcelona and PSG play high line, but then you have this space and you have the space over here to exploit. So if you look at every goal, it almost looks like a counterattack. And De Zerbi of Marseille, he was previously Brighton's manager, he does this so well, because what he'll do to maximize from the goal kick is he'll have the players here, but he'll have Pacho take the goal kick. So what that does is when an opposition team, when they want to press, say they're pressing in like a 4-4-2, okay? So say, it's Varane and Rashford's jobs to mark the center backs, and then Lamine Yamal and Olmo to mark the fullbacks. So say they're pressing in this 4-4-2. And then say like also the pivots are coming up, to support this press. So this is what Barcelona, for example, in certain situations, their pressing patterns might look like this, okay? They're up here, they're marking 4-4-2. The two center backs are marked, but the goalkeeper is the free man here. So what they would do is Zabarni or Pacho, one of them, would take the goal kick. Maybe Pacho would be in the box with Chevalier, and Zabarni will be out the box with Hakimi high and Mendes down. So say it's like this. This is how they're building up. What this would do is Pacho takes a goal kick, gets it to Chevalier, and now he has the ball. And all they would do is wait for somebody to pressure the goalkeeper. Once somebody pressured the goalkeeper, now you can pick a pass. You have an open man. Because if you're marking man to man, and somebody goes to press the goalkeeper, you're just gonna have a free man. That's kind of why I think PSG Enrique wanted Chevalier instead of Donnarumma, just because he knew he was gonna be in the situation. I think the Liverpool game was a huge one with Donnarumma's inability to play out from the back. A lot of different teams, are playing a lot of different systems. Like Pep is trying to rebuild Man City with a shot-stopping goalkeeper, which is a whole different system. He's kind of evolving, but this is the evolution of the modern game right now. With the ball-playing goalkeeper. Not only is Chevalier able to, beat the press and find the open man, but he can also play over the press and play into space, and you're instantly in a transition situation. You see kind of how like these situations and these goal-scoring opportunities are almost transition-like, because you're pulling players in and then just playing over the top or playing quickly through. So you're pulling in, finding a gap, and playing through. And that's what creates like 1v1s, isolations. And then that's also kind of where the game's going back from a really tactically dominant sport to a more individually dominated sport. Like we see like a lot of individual brilliance, especially this season with like Haaland, with Yamal, with Mbappe, Masantuono, if you want to look at the youngsters, if you want to go to Bundesliga. You have Luis Diaz. All these players are performing well individually because of these the newfound kind of way the modern game is played. It lets these players be in more space. It lets these players kind of operate more at their best. When is Lamine Yamal best? In an isolation or in space? He's one of the best players in the world. So if you give him that, it's going to be a high likelihood that you get a good outcome, you know? So yeah, I think I went on a bit of a tangent there, but that's kind of, you know, what the modern game is. Both these sides played really well. PSG just kind of outdid Barcelona in this. They found ways to attack their weaknesses. Similarly, with like this being, you can think of it like a chess match, kind of like that tactical brilliance against tactical brilliance and technical brilliance against technical brilliance. Another part of the sport is obviously with the Real Madrid and Atletico game, you can see that just targeting a team's weakness alongside playing your system is recipes for how to win a game. It's how you do all that. That's the difficult part. But what PSG did in the second half is eliminate Barcelona's strength. They subbed on Lucas Hernandez, I think, and he played in this back line to not only help provide support in build-up, it allowed Nuno Mendes to push up higher, but then you also have an extra man on Lamine Yamal, Barcelona's best player. So, you know, let's try to eliminate him. Let's try to not get him the ball much. And that was effective. You know, Gonzalo Ramos, they stayed, offside of Barcelona's high line. He stayed offside of Barcelona's high line to just make that high line a bit, you know, uneasy, make them, you know, think like, okay, if the ball's played over the top on the wings, this man's going to be free in the middle. So it kind of causes them to think a little bit. Kang-in Lee, one of the best players on the ball at PSG, he subbed on to help Vitinha in these kind of deeper zones. That second goal that PSG scored, you can see Kang-in Lee drop in and play like a pass you would see out of like a ball playing or a tempo setting like midfielder, like a Vitinha. You know, so combinations of what we talked about before, in addition with just attacking Barcelona's weaknesses, is how PSG were able to better them in this game. But Barcelona definitely did a lot of things positive. They didn't play a bad game. I think full strength versus full strength, this is a tremendous game. So yeah, that's probably, you know, a bit enough on Barcelona, or a bit enough on this game, and let's take it back to the focus on this being a Barcelona recap video. So another thing that Barcelona kind of did wrong this game, and I think I kind of see it with Flick not only in this game, but it was also evident more in this game. His decision making is not the best, I would say. I think Flick has some blame in this. I think, for one, he subbed on a center back too late. I think you needed to sub on a center back much earlier, especially with how well PSG were doing in that second half. I think you summing off your most creative player in Pedri in those crunch moments where like you're gonna have, you know, space and transition moments, you got to keep Pedri on in that situation. I think subbing off Rashford, who was your best attacker, was not the right call. He and Pedri, I think, should have stayed on. You can still make the substitutions. Balde, I think, was a good sub. Casado, good sub. Lewa, good sub. Bernal, good sub. I just think made at really wrong times and for the wrong players. So Flick is not to blame in this. Another thing with the the Inter game, and I think in my original video I talked about how Flick's like not really, he's like bit stubborn in his tactics, but I kind of see why. You know, he's trying to play the ball that he's trying to play. He's not dropping that high line. So we can kind of get into that in this game, because this game Barcelona they were dominated. They were obviously, you know, more possession, but if you watch this game, the opportunities that Sevilla created were just so clear cut, and they definitely just looked like the more dangerous team all throughout. Barcelona had moments to get something from this game. They just couldn't capitalize. So I guess we can just get that out of the way, because they missed the pen. Rooney Bargi missed a really easy chance. Like, these things you just can't. You can't mess up if you're a top club like Barcelona. But one thing that a lot of sides are doing in Europe to combat this Barcelona like high line is what I said with Gonzalo Ramos, is just keeping a player offside. Like, we see it a lot with Dembele and how PSG play. They just play like that, and it just happened to be something that a lot of teams have picked up and found a lot of success with. Barcelona's weaknesses are down the flanks. They're here and here because they want to create so many central overloads. All teams have to do is leave a man offside or play very, you know, have a really wide man with just a runner, play it into him, attack, and then just play it in the box. Because if a man's offside, he's already got gaps on the defender, and then all they have to do is just stay behind the ball. This was literally like 3 of Sevilla's 4 goals in the game. Another thing a lot of people are saying based off of that is like Flick just drop the high line. I don't think you can drop the high line, because if you look at this squad, it's very technical. It's not very physical. You do have physical players in like Koundé and Araujo, but the rest of the team, these players can get physically dominated. And why Flick wants to play such a high line is, one, it's just his system, it's just his philosophy. He wants to be very high intense. He's a possession oriented manager. He wants to dominate the ball, keep the ball as far away from his goal as possible. So high line, high intensity, those are 2 just like givens in his game. So he's not going to drop the high line, one, for that, but also because Barcelona doesn't have like the most physical players. And then in addition, to make that high line work, you need a very aggressive and intense counter press, because then you can't give the opposition time on the ball if you have so much space exposed. That's what Barcelona were good at last season. They would just win the ball instantly. But now I've noticed that teams are getting better at eliminating these central gaps and pinching the ball off a Barcelona player, and then having like free men right above the line. So what they would do is compact down into a low block to minimize the half spaces, and then one of the wingers or midfielders would camp right above, this line that Barcelona make, because obviously they would want Pedri and De Jong very high up. So it would be here. They just have a player right here. They pinch the ball, just play to him. He's unpressured, instantly out wide. This man would just be offside, and then they're through on goal. So the counter press is not as effective. Teams are better at winning the ball back off Barcelona. They don't have the players that they want available at all times. So there's that. Flick has not been the best at decision making, and then on top of that, their system that they play is getting exploited. Teams are figuring it out. Along with this, I think the reason why the counter press isn't as elite or as effective as it was last season is just because of player fatigue. This goes down to every team in Europe. Like, the Club World Cup is going to show its effects. It's going to show what it's done to the players with these like nagging injuries. If you look at even just last season, Barcelona didn't even play in the Club World Cup, but the last season they had such an intense season, going all the way in every single competition almost to the end. So you play a lot of games. These players, they pick up fatigue, and yes, Barcelona does have good depth this season, but then when you have the injuries, you lose that depth, and then that's where the players get injured. So yeah, that's a bit on the games, it's a bit on Barcelona this year. I did want to talk about just a couple things, because I did make that Barcelona thoughts video, so I want to talk about some things I got right and wrong. One thing I want to say, I'll start off with, that I got wrong is I had like a theory of how Barcelona could play. It was like kind of how they started off in this game. It's that 4-2-4 with Rashford and Rafinha. So not Rafinha technically as a 10, but he's more just as like, a second striker. So then they have that 4-2 and then 4, and then Balde and the fullbacks would push up really high, and then you have an even higher line. So I thought that would work. It clearly did not, because I think in these spaces you're just not offside. I didn't even think of that. That was like stupid of me. But players would just be here, and you're just not offside. You can stay above the line, and then boom, you go. Levante went up 2-0 in this game. But I was saying that, if Barcelona sub on a midfielder, they'll win this game. They'll come back 3-2, and then they did end up coming back 3-2, which was nice to see. But yeah, that 4-2-4 didn't work. Another thing was Bernal. I don't want to call it, like, I don't want to say I'm wrong yet. I did hype him up hella, but he's only been like, he's still coming back from an ACL tear. I think I'm gonna judge that at the end of the season. Another thing I just talked about, like the even higher line, that doesn't work, and Flick's not gonna drop that line. But yeah, some things I did get right is Barcelona are pretty core player dependent. I did mention that, like, obviously injuries to key players could hurt the squad just because of how Flick wants to play, and it has kind of shown a sense, but I don't think it's as bad as it could be. Barcelona still have great depth, great players. They don't, they'll be fine. They're gonna go far in every single competition. Another thing I figured out, another thing I got right, teams starting to figure out their system. It's not, Barcelona aren't invincible. It's not. This is not like a foolproof system. Teams are figuring it out. Player availability. I did say that one thing, the biggest thing that's gonna, you know, prevent this team from winning at all is the injuries, and so far it has proved. But then again, it's super early in the season. This is not like a season review in any sense. This is just so far. And then Joanne, I did have some doubts about Joanne. Doubts in the sense that I didn't know if he'd be able to perform at that high line, but he's been fantastic. That's something I can say that I was a bit doubtful on, but he blew my expectations out the water. So yeah, overall, bad 2 games, but Barcelona will definitely bounce back. They're definitely still going to be one of the teams to watch in Europe. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in the next one.